Hello everyone, and Happy New Year! So this year I have several very exciting projects that I have in the works. My main focus for this year is going to be unfinished projects. So if you've joined my channel within the last 2 years, you probably know that I have several projects that I've announced and then they've never come to fruition. So that's kind of my theme for this year. I feel like 2022 is hopefully going to be a good year. Let's just knock on as much wood as we can around here. My focus is just finishing up things, tying up loose ends, and just starting, I guess, next year fresh. So that includes my Worth gown. I cannot guarantee that it's going to be done by next year because there's several other things that I have coming up before it, but I am going to be working on it this year. Now, another project that I'm going to be working on is my 1880s that I announced back in, I guess, August. And then I also have a surprise project that I guess will be coming out in the summer that you're not going to find out what that is until it goes up because it's something that I've just had in the works for, I guess, about 4 or 5 years. And I don't think I've made any announcements on it on this channel. But yeah, I'm excited to finally finish that project up. It's been a long time coming, so I'm excited to do that. So I've, I guess, mostly got 3 big projects for this year, and then they're just going to be split down into smaller videos throughout the year. But before I can get started on those, I desperately need to deep clean my sewing room. This behind me doesn't look too bad, but the rest of my sewing room is kind of a disaster. So before I get started on the projects of the year, let's get cleaning. So when I said my sewing room is literally chaos, this is what I see when I'm looking up towards my camera. It is bad. So my goal is to get this all cleaned up before I start on my projects. So let's get to it. Alrighty, so this area is clean-ish. That box right there is all my backdrop stuff. So it's got like my actual backdrops, it's got decorations, and I don't know where to put it. It just kind of lives there. And then when I have to get into the closet to get fabric for projects, I just kind of pull everything out. It's not the most useful thing to have in front of a closet, but I don't know where else to put it, and my closet is full, so nothing else fits there. And now I have to figure out what to do with all of this. So this cart was supposed to help me with my productivity. I wanted it to be like organizing stuff that I was working on, and then it just kind of became a drop cart for stuff. So that's just going to continue living like that until I have the will to organize it, because right now I do not. I can only organize one project place at a time, and right now, that does not need to be organized. Yeah. So much stuff. Okay. Time to get back to work. Ah! Is day 2 of the sewing room cleanup. I spent a couple hours in here last night and I'm just working my way through everything. So got a little bit of stuff still going on there, but I think I've made quite a bit of progress. It's looking much better than it was yesterday. So now it's just time to finish cleaning it up. Alright, so here is all the fabric that I've pulled out from around my sewing table. So these are all projects that I want to work on soon, but they don't fit in my closet. So yeah, I have lots and lots of fabric for that. These two bags right here are actually fabric scraps, which I have a project that I'll be showing you later on for how to deal with fabric scraps, because apparently the recycling method isn't actually that great. So anyways, so these ones here are some lovely plaid silks. I love these colors. That is modern stuff. That is everyday wardrobe stuff. That was a project that I bought the materials for 2 years ago and meant to do 2 years ago, but you know, COVID, so that didn't end up happening. And then this is my 1880s project. So I am really excited for this one. It's going to be so pretty. Anyways, before I can actually process those, I need to finish tidying up this. So that is garbage, paper recycling, whatever. And then that's just other stuff that I need to sort.
2 hours later.
We have reached the end of day 2, and the sewing room is looking so much better. Now coming over here, this area is still a little bit messy. Those don't currently fit in the closet, so it's much better than it was before, but I'm hoping that by the end of this year I will sew in all the projects from this area and it'll be much more clear. Now, for over here, I have my bags of scraps. So my project to kind of take care of those is the closet core poof. So I've already printed out the pattern. I'll leave a link for it in the description if you are interested in creating this pattern yourself. They have it free on their website. All you have to do is enter your email address and your name, and then you get access to all their free patterns. So the closet core poof is meant to be a stash busting project. So I picked these out of my stash. They're kind of an array of fabrics, but I'm going to be creating a poof to fill with all my scraps. And the nice thing about it is that even if there's things that I still want access to, I can just dig through the poof to grab them if I need something. So that's going to be what the rest of this video is, so let's get to work. Starting things off, I chose a black twill fabric for the bottom of my poof because it wouldn't show as much dirt. And living with kids, you definitely need that. So I also added an extra 1.5 inches to the middle so I could create a flap to hide the zipper. When cutting the sides of the poof, I decided I wanted to make it slightly taller, so I added 1 inch of height to the pattern. Because I'm using a thinner fabric, the pattern recommends that it's interfaced before putting it together. And to make interfacing the pieces faster, I chose to batch interface them before cutting it out. While this does make the process faster, I also had to make sure that I was only activating the glue in the section I was using. And once they were all interfaced, I then rough cut them out. And cleaned up the edges with my serger. With all the pieces cut and serged, it was time to lay out the design for the top of the poof. Now, since I'm only using 2 colors, I went with the alternating pattern, but if you're using more than 2 colors, then this is a good process to kind of see what you want the poof to look like in the end. I definitely recommend pressing the seams as you sew them together for a cleaner finish. I didn't do that for all of them, but I did make sure that I did it for the last section just to make it nice and clean when I was sewing it all together. As you can see here, mine is definitely not perfect, but I'm okay with that. This next step was listed as optional in the pattern instructions, but I really like the clean finish that the piping gives the poof. And with that attached, it's time to sew up the sides. And once again, because I'm only using the 2 colors, I went with the alternating pattern for the sides of my poof. So once everything was sewn together, I then lined up the seams and the patterns and stitched the top of the poof to the side. And now it's time for the bottom. In the instructions, it says to just leave the zipper exposed or to use an invisible zipper. Now, I've never had much luck with invisible zippers as they just tend to burst, and leaving a regular zipper exposed on wood flooring kind of makes me a little wary. So I decided to add a flap over my zipper to deal with any possibility of it scratching up the floor. I sewed one side of the zip as instructed, and then I pinned the extra length I'd cut over top of the zipper to keep it hidden. Now, to make sure that the bottom was still the right size, I measured across the zip and then compared that the other way just to make sure that it was still a circle. And then I stitched the zip in place. Now you might have noticed that my zip is just a bit too long for this pattern. I didn't have one in the right size, but I decided to just trim it down and then zigzag over the edges to keep the zip from sliding off. And to finish the bottom, I added the piping to the edge, and then I lined up all the balance marks and pinned the bottom of the poof to the side and stitched it in place. I was very careful when it came to sewing near the zipper just because the zipper teeth were very close to the seam, and so that is something to think about when you are sewing that together. And it is done. So I think this only took like a couple hours to put together. The top of this is definitely not perfect, but in the closet core pattern it says you can also put a button over top if you don't like how it meets in the center. Now this thing is huge. I have 3 bags of scraps here, and I have another box of scraps out in my hall closet. I definitely think I'm not going to be able to fill this all, so I will start with what I have and then go from there. And the really nice thing about this is if you ever need scraps again for like running some tests through, you just pretty much unzip the bottom and you can grab your scraps. Now, one thing which I don't have, which it actually recommends to do if you ever want to wash your bag without having to try and restuff everything, is to put a mesh bag or some type of bag inside of this so you don't have to deal with scraps every single time you want to wash it. But I don't have a bag with me right now, so I'm just going to fill it, and if in the future I need to wash it, I can add a bag then. Alright, so that is all 3 bags, and this thing is still very loosely packed. I will definitely be diving into my haul closet to get these scraps out of there. So I think I'm going to leave this here for now. So I will see you, I guess, in a moment. And it's finished! So I finished filling it this morning with the scraps from my closet. A scrap bucket is this one right here. This is, let's see, 102 liters or 27 gallons. And this was completely full of scrap fabric. And all of it fits in here. And then there's actually still room in here for more. So this thing just eats up scraps. So yeah, this is, I think, a great project for any seamstress who sews a lot and has lots of fabric scraps and doesn't know what to do with them. Yeah, definitely a great project. Funnily enough, this isn't the first one I've made. This is actually the second one. And the other one I have, I didn't use the correct interfacing. So this one, when you're using a lighter fabric, it recommends to use a heavier duty interfacing. And I used a bit of a lighter one. And the fabric I used had a little bit of stretch in it. And so the interfacing gave way. And instead of being a nice tall poof like this, the sides have bulged out and it's kind of more become like a pancake poof. So definitely recommend either using strong non-starch fabric or a very strong interfacing. So for this one I used a crafting interfacing, and it's quite thick, so I think it will hold up, but that might be an update for the future. So that is the end of today's video. My sewing room is mostly tidy because I still need to do a quick tidy from this project, but I am ready to start on my projects for 2022. And I'm so excited for all of you to join me. So I will see you next time. Bye!